Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm George Chow, Minister of State for Trade, and I'll be your MC today. I'm here in Vancouver, in Chinatown, on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, with whom we share this land and their hospitality. Welcome, everyone, for joining us online today, including Minister Bear and Minister Ralston, who are a strong supporter of the Chinese Canadian Museum. We're here today to celebrate an incredible milestone for the Chinese Canadian community and for all Canadians. To introduce us to this historical moment in Vancouver, Chinatown, please welcome Premier John Horgan.
Thank you very much, George. It is great to be here today. I am coming to you through the wonders of technology from the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation. And this is an exciting day for all British Columbians, especially those from the Chinese Canadian community. This acquisition of the landmark Wing Sang building in the heart of Vancouver's Chinatown is absolutely cause for celebration. And the contributions of Chinese Canadians to this province have been invaluable and indeed profound. The Chinese Canadian Museum responds to the community's long-standing desire to bring forward their stories of achievement and accomplishment, despite extraordinary hardship and injustice over many decades and indeed centuries. This museum will honor the stories of the famous and the forgotten. It will also be a defense against those who wish to deny the rich history of British Columbia. It will do so by acknowledging historical wrongs, a terrible legacy which continues to this day. The racism and hatred faced by the Chinese Canadian Museum community over the past number of years has been highlighted by the pandemic. And I know that many of us were just appalled at the behavior of some in our community towards British Columbians of Chinese descent at the beginning of the pandemic. But that was overshadowed, thank goodness, over time by extraordinary acts of kindness and generosity, bringing people together. And that has been the goal and focus of the Chinese Canadian Museum Society from its inception. In 2017, we came to government on a commitment to ensure that we told the stories of British Columbians, all British Columbians, from all walks of life, the successful, the ordinary, and those who have been forgotten. That is the rich culture of our province, but the economic, cultural, and social contribution of Chinese Canadians needs to be highlighted, and that is the purpose of our announcement today. I want to thank Bob Rennie for being with us today and having the opportunity to thank him directly for not only having the vision back at the turn of the century to purchase the Wing Sang building, but to revitalize it, keeping its heritage intact, and having it in place for us to make a purchase today to have the Chinese Canadian Museum take root in Chinatown. Bob's contribution was not just to buy the building and restore the building, but he will be giving back a significant amount of money, I'll leave it to him to talk about that, that will help us keep the museum going. This is an exciting day for all of us, but I particularly want to thank Minister George Chow, who, of course, was on council in Vancouver when Bob made the purchase. They've been working on these issues for a long, long time. Grace Wong is with us as well. We'll tell the story of her work and the work of the community to get us to this day. And lastly, Lisa Bear, the former minister, my friend Bruce Ralston, who I worked with from 2005 to better understand the importance of the multiculturalism that makes our community, but also the racism that we needed to stamp out. So Bruce, welcome today for this very historic moment. And lastly, Melanie Mark, the MLA for the region or the area, as well as the minister responsible for culture, heritage, and sport. To have her there to see this as a tourism opportunity as well as a cultural story is truly remarkable. And Melanie, thank you for your work. I look forward to your comments. And with that, George, I'll pass it back to you. But to all of those who are tuning in today, this is a special occasion for all Canadians because this is the first dedicated Chinese Canadian museum in a country that was built not just by Anglo-Saxons and Irish, not just Italians and Portuguese, but Chinese, Indo-Canadians, and every person on the globe has had a piece of making British Columbia what it is today. Our dynamism is a direct result of our multicultural diversity. I'm so proud to be able to kickstart this today. And thank you again, Bob, for your vision to get us to this place. And I'll pass it back to you, George.
Thank you, Premier. And may I now introduce Melanie Mark, Minister of Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport. Minister Mark.
Thank you so much. Simgiget, Sigadamana, Giwit Wiltsuk. Hi everyone, it's my honor to be here with you. My Niska name's Lahaikwiskak. I'm Melanie Mark. Very proud to be the MLA for Vancouver Mount Pleasant and Minister for Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport. Just want to acknowledge the stewardship and the caretakers of this unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. It is my honor to be here on this beautiful day. I just want to thank the Creator for the sunshine. Just to acknowledge all of you that are joining us. Premier, you had mentioned our colleagues that are on the line and the other guests. There was hundreds of people invited to this really auspicious occasion. Thank you for taking time to witness this historic moment. I think in our culture, witnessing is so important. It is our chance to not forget this moment and to imprint this historic moment for the Chinese community. I want to give a shout out to my colleague, Minister Bear, for starting this important work back in 2017, Premier for giving me the mandate to get this done. I became the minister 14 months ago. We've been working really, really hard. Everyone knows I'm relentless and very committed to cultural diversity, to making sure that people that haven't had a voice, that haven't had a seat at the table, take up space and that we correct the wrongs. And I always talk about paddling together and reconciliation and action. And so you can imagine just how honored I am to be here. I want to thank my colleague, Teresa Watt, the MLA, who's also my critic. We've been working together. This has been a dream of the communities for a very, very long time. And I'm at the building, this historic building here in Vancouver, Chinatown. Grace is here and I can't wait to hear her words. But it's just really with gratitude. There was a vision. There was a vision to have the first ever Chinese Canadian Museum right here in Vancouver's Chinatown. And today, that dream is made possible. And it's because of partnerships with people like Bob, who's going to be talking about paddling together, and Grace and everyone on the board who has just stuck with it. We had just doors away, we've had the seat at the table, an award-winning exhibit talking about not just the injustices that the Chinese community has been up against, but let's not forget that Canada and BC wouldn't be what it is without the contributions of the Chinese community. But to also think about what the Chinese community has been up against lately. And now is the time that we have to paddle together. Now is the time that we have to bring hope into Vancouver's Chinatown. Now we're going to stand together and we're going to fight those people that want to ignore the contributions, not only of the Chinese Canadian people in this province, the Indigenous people, South Asians, and those of us with deep cultural backgrounds. We've been paddling together. And this is just a historic day. I want to just end by thanking my team. Everyone's been working so hard. The public service in the middle of COVID has been working around the clock to make this happen. This is a legacy for the community. This is a legacy for the next generation. This is a building that's going to open doors to understanding, increased understanding, and that resilience and that sense of hope. So if I can leave you with anything, today, on this day, February 11th, 2022, Year of the Tiger, the year that we're going to dig deep to that diversity and strength, we have a new beacon of light in Vancouver's Chinatown. Congratulations to everyone involved. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Minister Mark. And this truly is a sure milestone. For me, it's been an honor for me to work with the Chinese Canadian community over the last few years to bring us to this moment. And I'll cherish this experience I have had and the work that's yet to come. I'll say a few words in Cantonese, and then we'll go on to the next speaker. 各位朋友，我係周炳華，我係呢個溫哥華非州圍區嘅省議員，亦都係呢個省務貿易廳長。我今日好高興能夠喺呢度同大家見面，嚟去宣佈我哋呢個咁重要嘅宣佈。我哋省政府喺2017年 當選咗之後咧，就開始工作履行我哋實現呢個華裔家人博物館呢個項目。咁呢個項目咧係由我去推動嘅。咁好早嘅時候咧，我哋就有一個諮詢會，諮詢會之後咧，我哋就有一個工作小組。工作小組之後咧，我哋就成立咗一個獨立嘅協會。咁呢個協會咧就喺2020年3月成立啦。咁而家我哋亦都嚟到另外一個里程碑，呢個里程碑咧就係話為呢個協會揾一個永久嘅會址。呢個館址咧就喺我哋呢個溫哥華華埠。咁溫哥華華埠係一個有歷史性嘅地區，我本人亦都喺華埠長大嚇。我哋嘅 Minister Mark 咧，亦都係喺華埠附近嗰度長大嘅啫。咁我哋喺呢個人咧，亦都同呢個華埠咧有好多淵源，好多 connection。咁呢次我哋能夠做到呢一樣嘢咧，就係除咗為我哋華裔先驅嘅歷史俾全部嘅省民知道之後咧，同埋後代嘅年青人，不論你係華裔加拿大人又好，或者其他嘅族裔嘅人士都好，嚟知道我哋華人對 BC 省嘅貢獻，呢個係好重要嘅。同時，我哋亦都希望能夠唔係淨係講呢個過去，亦都講將來我哋華裔喺呢個家國喺我哋 BC 省將來嗰個身份認同各方面都有好多啲問題我哋可以討論嘅。咁我喺呢度咧就好多謝我哋省長何瑾，好多謝馬蘭尼廳長，同埋以前廳長Lisa Bear， 同埋我哋嘅廳長Bruce Wilson 先生，佢都係大力支持我哋呢個museum 嘅。咁我哋喺呢度咧，好希望呢個 museum 係第一步能夠幫助發展華埠嘅旅遊，同埋我哋呢個振興華埠。多謝各位。And now I'd like to welcome Grace Wong, Chair of the Chinese Canadian Museum Society of BC. Grace, welcome.
Thank you very much, Minister Chow. I first of all would like to say I feel very privileged to be on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Today is truly momentous for the Chinese Canadian Museum Society of British Columbia. With this amazing support and funding, the Chinese Canadian Museum will become a reality. Today's announcement of the funding for acquiring the Wing Sang building and to support society operations means we will have a permanent home in Vancouver, Chinatown. And what a perfect home. The Yip Sang family is the oldest building in Chinatown. It was the home of Mr. Yip Sang and his family. Mr. Yip Sang left a great legacy of impact on his community and success in business, and many descendants who are in our community and across Canada. I'm sitting in the schoolroom in the Wing Sang building. It's the oldest schoolroom in existence in the city of Vancouver. It started as a schoolroom for Yip Sang's many children. The blackboard behind me is original and has writing that is over 80 years old. But we would not have this except for Bob Rennie's vision in identifying the Wing Sang building as something that needed to be saved and restored for the community. I want to thank Bob for being such a wonderful custodian for this very special building and this history. Just recently, Bob shared with me that his family will have an announcement of support for the Chinese Canadian Museum. We're touched by that, and I want to express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation. As we prepare for a new home, we will turn our efforts to planning the museum experience for our visitors. We'll have exhibitions and programs that will mark the history, culture, and legacy of Chinese Canadians and their many contributions to the fabric of BC and Canada. We expect to have digital and interactive programs. We have themes of intercultural communities, contributions, innovations, and intergenerational resilience, much like the stories that took place in this building. I hope all British Columbians and those from beyond will come to the museum and find an enlightening and transformative experience. There is a Chinese proverb, one that has inspired us at the museum. Tell me, and I will forget. Show me, and I may remember, but involve me, and I will understand. On behalf of the Board of Directors of our Society, I would like to express our enormous gratitude to Premier John Horgan, Minister Melanie Mark, Minister George Chow, and Minister Baer, Minister Ralston, for all of the support that brings us to this day. Thank you for your personal interest in this project and for recognizing its importance. And thank you to Mr. Bob Rennie, who also recognized the importance of this project and believing the Chinese Canadian Museum is the right custodian for this wonderful piece of history, the Wing Sang building. It is an honor to be able to make this home ours and to have the Chinese Canadian stories that we showcase come to life here. We invite everyone to be involved. Please join us on this important and historic journey to establish the first Chinese Canadian museum in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, and congratulations to you and the board. And I also want to say once again, thank you for the hardworking board of the Chinese Canadian Museum of BC, because you're all volunteers. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart, and also the people who actually started this, the working group as well. Some of you are on today. Now I would like to introduce Bob Rennie, the real estate developer and the generous donor of the Wing Sang building. Bob, please.
Thank you, George. With no offense, I'm not a developer. I work for them. But before I get to thanking all the others on this Zoom call, this is a very special day for the province, for the community, and it's a big day for our family. And I'd like to start here. I tend to look at everything through two different lenses today. It's politics versus policy. Is this just politics or is this policy? Social jewelry versus social justice. Is this merely social jewelry or is this social justice? And listening to you all and some of the pre-conversations, I want to thank Premier Horgan for really stepping up and doing the right thing. Minister Chow, a big shout out to Minister Melanie Mark, and also to Minister Bruce Ralston and former Minister Lisa Baer. This is policy. This is your government's policy. I see you stepping up here in Chinatown, throughout the province on Indigenous issues, LGBTQ ×2. You're dealing with social injustice, you're dealing with diversity, you're dealing with inclusion, you're calming prejudice. We've seen prejudice rise to the surface with what's happened south of the border with their past president. It's become in vogue to criticize. And what you're doing here is right in line with policy that you're doing elsewhere. And we're so honored to participate. And then on the, I actually had to, I made notes. And most important to me and to Carrie Folks, who's been on this journey with our children and the museum, and Wendy Chang, the director of our collections. This is not merely social jewelry. This is social justice that is taking place. Our collection is primarily involved in social justice, raising voices of those that aren't heard. And this is just a continuum of what we do with our collection that we see now happening with the Chinese Canadian Museum. And I just, I want to thank you. And I think what you're doing today is going to be marked for years in the Chinatown community. And it's offering leadership for other communities to follow. Well, Carrie and I when we took over 51 East Pender in 2004, I think maybe similar to Mr. Yip Sang, we never thought that this building would not be going to our children, our grandchildren, our grandchildren, but it did. We consider ourselves great custodians. We were good custodians. We took on the building when it needed a passion to go through the renovations that had to be done. But when I see Premier Horgan, I see all of you on this call stepping up, it's time for us to step aside. It's an emotional thing for the family. And then when Melanie, Mark, and Grace came along, and you just saw that we have no choice but to hand over the custodianship to all of you on this call. So you've stepped up. So now we're going to step aside and we're going to step up. And as a family, we've bounced around numbers. We have decided to make a contribution. I sit on a lot of museum boards, and all of these things sound good at cocktail parties, but they have to be sustainable. So we're going to put up $7.8 million to make sure that this museum is sustainable. And it's the role of the museum is, yes, to tell the journeys, the Exclusion Act. I have stood in the secret passageway upstairs in our building since 2004, explaining that between 1923 and 1947, there was only 50 Chinese citizens allowed to immigrate to Canada. Yet one indentured Chinese worker died every day, bringing the railway across the Rocky Mountains. And when the last spike was put in, it was cleansed of all Chinese citizens. So you're doing the right thing, and we want to participate in doing the right thing. But on the softer side, let's get Chinatown back to where we come down to the museum, we grab dinner, we walk the streets and shop the shops. We can't get yesterday back, but I think this as a real beacon will maintain that yesterday is here and preserved as Chinatown goes through the new Chinatown. And I'm super excited, and we're not going to go anywhere, Grace. We're going to stay involved with you. We want to be part of it. So I've sort of gone through all mine. So thank you, John. Thank you, George. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Grace, and Bruce and Lisa. You're somewhere on the call. And just the biggest thanks to my family, who actually just let me do what I want to do. And this journey is going to keep going. So just thank you very much. We're so honored to participate.
Thank you, Bob. And I think I also like to thank you. I remember a conversation back in 2004 when you bought this building, and you were very apprehensive because you're not from Chinatown, but you stepped up to the plate because nobody from the Chinese Canadian community bought the building. And when I said real estate development, I think you are using your resources and your know-how in order to bring us to this stage. So I thank you on behalf of the Chinatown community for your vision and determination. And as the Premier and Minister Mark have shared, this is a monumental time for Chinese Canadian. And I also like to share with you something I have in common with the Premier. Not that we are two old guys on the government caucus, but his dad and my dad both work in Chinatown. He's in Victoria, Chinatown, mine in Vancouver, Chinatown. And Bob, you also have a long association with Chinatown. Grace, Minister Mark, she grew up 3 blocks from here. So Chinatowns all over are important. And I think we'll do all we can, and Chinatown is changing. I think we would put all our energy in here to get to the next step, which is renovating your fantastic building into the Chinese Canadian Museum that's stationed here in Chinatown. So I would like to welcome Premier John Horgan once more for his closing remark. Premier?
Thank you, George. And again, it's such a thrill to be part of this announcement today. Bob, your passion and your obvious commitment to the community goes back decades, and it will go forward decades as well. You and your family are to be commended not just for your vision to buy the building, but this extraordinary personal contribution to keep the society going forward so that we can have a grand opening in 2023. And as we said before the call began, 100 years since the introduction of the Chinese Exclusion Act. I can't think of a better anniversary present than to celebrate the extraordinary contribution of Chinese Canadians through the hardship that we've all acknowledged. But despite that, the excitement and thrill of all that's been offered up today, it's really, it's humbling for George and Melanie and I. We happen to be here at this moment. We mentioned Teresa Watt. There has been a change of perspective in governance across the country. And of course, BC always leads the way. And it's because of the diversity. The makeup of our communities is, quite frankly, an international community. I'm the son of an Irish immigrant. George is the grandson of a Chinese Canadian immigrant, and his story is a spectacular one. And I hope that there will be a page or two at the museum to talk about how George Chow, King George, came to be here, and a citizen and a city councillor, establishing the cultural centre, and also now a minister of the Crown in the province of British Columbia. The stories are, George is one of thousands and thousands of stories that Chinese Canadians have contributed to who we are. And to be able to do this with a minister of Indigenous descent, someone who can say her family have been here for generations beyond imagining, to have us all come together today and start the journey to paddle together, as Melanie so ably always says. The diversity on this call is the diversity of British Columbia. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to be the leader of the government at a time when we're making massive shifts in how we look at each other, how we acknowledge our past, we embrace it, and we learn from it. And Grace, I want to close by saying your prophecy couldn't be better. If you tell me, I might remember. If you show me, it might stay again, but involve me. And our objective from the beginning, based on our engagement in opposition and then in government, was to include and engage the community, because that's where these things have to come from. And now Bob is passing it back to the community and with a significant contribution. And I know that you, Grace, and the society and everyone in Vancouver will benefit from this, but so will all British Columbians. The story of Chinese Canadians is not just in the Chinatowns of our major urban centers. It is in Cumberland. It is in Revelstoke. It is in Nelson. It is in Kamloops. It is in every community in this great province. And we're going to be telling that story thanks to the work of the society and the work that Bob put in to keep this building and to revitalize it and then make a significant contribution. To everyone who's here, thank you so much. I look forward to 2023 and the opening of the first Chinese Canadian Museum in Canada.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a great journey. And of course, the next milestone, we have to take it to the community and add on what we have added as a government. And I look forward to working with the board in order to bring us to the next milestone. So thank you, everyone. And Happy New Year of the Tiger.
All right, thanks.